It's a bright morning down here at Lodge Hill, the home of Dan Skelton Racing, a trainer in hot pursuit of his first Trainers' Championship. We're approaching a very busy Christmas period. Let's go behind the scenes and see what a morning looks like here at Dan Skelton's.
Lovely, Liam, lovely!
Oh, it's been brilliant. I might go the rest of my career and never have a November as good as that again. Winning Paddy Power, Betfair Chase, Coral Gold Cup, Holden Gold Cup, and a good host of other races as well. I think we had 31 winners in the month, which is the most we've ever had. So we'll try and push on through December. Not go quite so mad in January, February, but keep the wheel turning a little, and then March, April, obviously we want to go as mad as we can.
What's the reasoning for a quiet January and February?
I think that's when horses are at their lowest ebb. If you over race them and you over subject them to all the things that we can do as as not just as trainers but as people, you've got to remember that's when the weather's at its lowest. The days are very short. They're coming into the spring, so their coats are changing. Their bodies are changing fast at that point. They've had a load of training under their belts. So they're probably at the lightest they're going to be, in terms of physical weight. So I think you have to be really cautious with them. Some horses don't care. Protector out there, he stuffs his head down and gets on with it. But the 3, 4, 5-year-olds, you have to be a little cautious with them, and just all those things add up. Make sure you don't overdo it in January and February, and then hopefully you've got the full team for March and April. You can't rely on the ground too much in October nowadays. I remember when I started, Chepstow, that first October meeting, it was genuine good to soft all over, and then you could crack on. Cheltenham, the October meeting, you had to watch for the ground a little, but realistically everywhere was sort of good to soft and even softer, but now that's not the case. So we've backed off a little, and we're training them more for November, beyond, and then the novices as well, we train them very, very different now.
Why? How come?
Just train them much lighter, allow them to improve really that first run. Don't put the pressure on them. I think they enjoy that as well, to be honest. There's no expectation. Also means you can probably get another run at the end of the season because you haven't overdone the start of the season. So yeah, I think overall it's just a better way to do things, and there's plenty of them did win on debut, but plenty of them got beat as well. So, but yeah, we go to the races nowadays with an optimistic outlook at all times. But also you don't have the weight of expectation on your shoulders the whole time. That weight of expectation just, that glides down the reins to the horses. They don't want to be under pressure.
Racing up the hill, and it's the mare Panic Attack now that strikes the front. Panic Attack is driven out, 3-4 lengths clear, and seeing it out well to win the Paddy Power Gold Cup.
Could you just have envisioned the campaign that she's had?
Not really. Not really, no. We were always going for the Paddy Power, and before she ran in the Paddy Power, the entries closed for the Coral Gold Cup, and I was sort of going through my list of horses, what I could enter, and I thought, not convinced any of these can win. And she was sort of lurking there, looking pretty well handicapped. I thought, well, I've got to put her in. So put her in, and then she won the Paddy Power, and she come out of that really, really well, and I'm in an hour in, and then sort of said to Harry on the Saturday, I think I might confirm her, and yeah, sod it, do it, he said. And she got beat. We'd have had to have found another route and done something different, but you unshackle yourself with expectation, by taking the approach that we've taken this year, I feel, and you can't do it without the inclusion of the owners. They're the most important part, because the expectation of the owners is the thing that we as trainers find it the hardest to live up to, I feel, anyway. But if you can explain that expectation concisely and give an outline of what the season might look like, and what we want to try and achieve over a career, I think that's it's been helpful to me anyway.
And that goes hand in hand with how you're now training the younger horses.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
be really clear with the owners wanting
Yeah.
and explain that it's going to be a slow start to the season, but it's all about building.
Yeah, exactly. And whenever we get a young horse here, we're starting some horses now at 2 years old. You know, they'll be jumping out here later on the grass, the 2-year-olds that we might run in France in the spring. But all of those horses, you know, our ambition is to make them the best they can be. You know, we're gonna overachieve with one or two, and that's great. What we don't want to do is we don't want to underachieve with any. Now we are going to, because that's nature of the business, right? You know, there are going to be horses that we underachieve with, but we've got to keep that number as small as possible. That's how I feel as a trainer. You know, what's the standard? What's the bar to achieve? It's make sure every horse is as good as it can be. And I say to the owners, like, if you're patient and a horse, you know, makes it to 120 rating, and that was as much as it could achieve, you've helped it. But if it could have been a 140 horse, but you raced it too soon, you raced it in bad ground, you know, all these things that you can do that helps them down the ladder, and that 140 horse ends up only being a 120 horse. To me, that's a sin. As a trainer, like, we can't allow that to happen. We have to, if they can achieve X, they have to achieve X or more. I don't like to achieve X minus.
I think his planning is, you know, is what really sets him apart, and he's great at working back from a race with the horses and targeting things, and you're just making them peak for that day. You know, a lot of people and a lot of probably like racing folk, you know, in general, they probably expect horses to perform at their highest level every run. It's absolutely impossible. You can't do that, especially at that championship level. You know, you're asking a horse, you know, I think a horse will only give its absolute maximum probably it's 3 times in its life, you know, its maximum heart rate, and to be able to really push to the limit. And you have to be careful when you ask them that, especially as young horses, and that's what I think he's been brilliant at.
I'm really interested in what you said about the French horses, the 2-year-olds. How did that come about? What's that idea for?
We did it in the past. Like when I first started training, we took quite a few 3-year-olds over there. We had a couple of winners, but you know, those horses are expensive to buy. Those horses out of Auteuil and other places as 3-year-olds. So we thought we'd go and join the party. And we've got the facilities to do it. And it'll give us an idea of, you know, there's going to be 1 or 2 of ours that come forward and are good enough to compete with them. It'll also give us an idea of what we're buying, you know, because all of a sudden we're running in that market with a horse and we think, well, that horse is that good, and that horse there is 5 lengths ahead of it, 5 lengths behind it, 10 lengths ahead of it. We can take a stronger opinion in the buying market. And it's great to be in the position where we can pick a few of those, but at the same time, you know, Grey Dawning came here as a store, unraced, unbroken. The New Lion came here as a store, unraced, unbroken. You know, there's still a lot of the academy that you know that we will use and continue to use. I think it's a really important part for us because we have the facilities and the people to do it. So expanding that, you know, we can take these 2-year-olds, then 3-year-olds to France and compete, and that competition, like I say, will get us into the buying arena and perhaps give us a little bit more of an insight into what we should or shouldn't be buying.
I don't want to talk too much about last season, but you achieved something incredible. I know you didn't win the Trainers' Championship in the end, but you amassed the most prize money a trainer has ever had and not won it. Yeah. What's your general feeling looking back on last year?
It's a great year. I think that would have won all but 3 championships, what we amassed last year. And at the end of the day, I'm very proud that it took Willie to be 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 5th in the Grand National to beat us, because if he'd have only been 1st, he wouldn't have beat us. If he'd have been 2nd, 3rd and 5th, he wouldn't have beat us. You know, I had in my mind that we had him covered going into the Grand National if he won it. But who can legislate for taking 850 grand out of the race? You know, I couldn't do that. But we're pushing him hard. You know, whatever you say about, you know, finishing positions, us finishing 2nd, him winning and everything else, like, we're pushing him, you know, and that's a feather in your cap in its own right, because he's a hard man to push. You've got to have competition to beat. The competition's got to be high. At the end of the day, competition, high level of competition, makes an interesting sport, makes it good for the participants, it makes it good for the public to watch as well. And then people want to be involved. If they see good races, owners are motivated to get involved. Like, look at the upcoming races over Christmas. You know, they're going to be great races. The King George could be one of the best competitive-wise, King George. And I'm not saying that you're going to get a Kedis Star performance, 190 plus, whatever. But what I'm saying is, in terms of competition, that race is about as competitive a race, looking like, that you get, including Cheltenham, more than Cheltenham perhaps. So people look on at that and go, oh yeah, I'd love to be involved in that. And that's a great attitude to take, and that's what we try and promote. We try and promote the competition aspect, because winning is what it's all about. Winning's an unwritten rule. We all want to win. We all know we want to win. You don't have to go and grade trainers and owners and jockeys by saying, you know, how much do you want to win, and put them on a scale, because I can tell you now, everyone's 100%. So you don't need to go and worry about that. What we really try and promote and enhance is the competition element. Let's get out there and compete. Let's compete in everything. And that's what I love doing. I love being a competitor.
A lot of trainers, I think, if what had happened to you had happened to them last year, they'd have been demoralised. It would have got them down.
Yeah, but I knew that we were getting better as well. So I would be demoralised if I thought that was the best team I was ever going to field to win a championship. I'd have been demoralised, because I thought, how am I going to do it? If I can't do it with these, how am I going to do it? But I knew we had, you know, those horses. We haven't lost any horses from last year. They're still around, plus more. So I kind of felt confident that I had the team for this year and beyond, you know, to try and right that. But like I say, we still pushed him. He still wouldn't have won the 2 championships he won. I'm not taking anything away from him, because what he's done is absolutely phenomenal. And he beat us, and we were second, and the history says we were second. But we still made him win the Grand National to win both championships, which is an amazing thing to do. You know, to say, right, we've got to win the Grand National to win this championship. You deserve to win it, because it's the hardest race in the world to win. So fair play. But do you know what I mean? We pushed him that hard. And like I say, competition, you need harder competition. Like, you get better, the industry gets better, everything gets better if there's competition and high level of it.
Do you plan for Willie to go and win another one? Is it a case of I now have to take things to a different level? You have to go into.
I'm planning for him to win everything, because he often does. So I'm just planning for him to win everything.
Big leap as well by Thistle Ask. 6 lengths clear from Mydaddy's Star, then Prairie Wolf, and up towards the line. Thistle Ask was right up with a fierce pace, but has run them into the ground.
Thistle Ask, he's made every inch of the running so far. Comes up well at the last. Skelton asked him up, and Thistle Ask makes every inch of the running to give the Skeltons a first success in the BetMGM Holden Gold Cup.
Thistle Ask has been an incredible horse for you this season. You mentioned that you got him for, was it 12 grand?
I think it was 11.
11 grand. So. And he's gone and won a Holden Gold Cup. He's won 2 on the way to do that as well. Now rated 144, goes into the Christmas period looking a likely run in the Desert Orchid.
Yeah, he'll be there as long as he can be.
What's been the making of him?
I haven't got a clue. Don't know. I have no idea. Maybe he just likes the facilities that we have, and you know, he's an older horse, he's a stronger horse, you can train him quite hard. I have no idea, but I mean, he's just incredible. Yeah. You know, we ran him quickly and he enjoyed it. Yeah, it's just, we try and buy 1 or 2 horses like that every year. We might find them privately, we might find them at Doncaster sales like we did with him. The year before we had Beatbox, I think he won 7. So we always try and unearth a little nugget somewhere, but you never expect them to do what he's done. But it's, you know, the team produced these results. I just, you know, I steer the ship in the right direction. It's their feet under the waterline that's paddling it.
But with horses like him, I feel like everything you do from now on is almost a bonus.
Oh, no doubt. Everything was a bonus after he won at Wetherby, to be honest with you. You don't expect, you know, he won a Premier Handicap there, and then he's gone and won the Holden Gold Cup. I mean, like, wow. Yeah, he's massively into bonus territory.
But I feel like Kempton, the way that he goes through his races, he's always given an aggressive ride. It would suit him in the desert.
Oh yeah, no doubt. We take a bit of catching anyway. There might be better handicapped horses now, though. You know, it's gone up £33.
Yeah.
You know, there has to come a point at which pounds catch you up. But
if he goes and wins that, he's not going to be far off Champion Chase.
Well, if he wins that, he'll run in the Clarence House, won't he, right-handed. Ascot, we'll just go there and dip a toe in the water and see what happens. But he might run in it if he doesn't win, because he loves running. So, and if you can't win off 144, okay, you might go and find a 0 to 145 somewhere that he can win off top weight, 5-6 runners or something. But I'd be encouraged if he was not beat too far, if he was beat to go and have a go in a Clarence House, whatever, because like, why not?
And Cabral de Matan soars over it with a 12-length lead. Cabral de Matan making no mistake with a thumping win.
He was brilliant, shown some great work at home. He was obviously going to improve for a step up in trip. I mean, I spoke to Paul when the horses moved, and like Paul said as much. He'd had a wind up. You know, there was a lot of things to improve this year, to be honest with you, without me getting involved. So we just took the obvious route, started in a handicap, and yeah, we find ourselves in this position, heading to the Relkeel, and he'd probably be the highest rated horse going into it, I'd have thought. That doesn't necessarily mean it's his race to lose, because he's going up into Grade 2 class, which he's never been in before. But I don't fear it for him. You know, I quite like the idea of going up in trip. I'd love to see him go to 3 miles, to be honest.
The Cleve hurdle, possibly after?
No, absolutely not.
No? Too soon?
Just Cleve hurdle, that track, really soft ground. I think it's just blunting him. You know, he's a young horse. I don't think he needs that. If he won the Relkeel, I'd just wait and go straight to the Stayers hurdle.
Top guy in the Bale jacket has grabbed it late on with Tristan Durrell and Wims.
Mirabad, another winner for Tristan Durrell. Blue carpet, a look over the shoulder now for Tristan Durrell. He's going to get off the mark over the obstacles for Dan Skelton and Tristan Durrell.
What a year it's been for him. He came here at 15. Yeah. But this year, I feel like you've given him more responsibility and he's grown in that role.
Yeah, he's ready for it, isn't he? Got a lot of support from the owners. The owners they just go with us, with the jockeys, really. Obviously, it's nice to have Harry ride everything that he can, but we've got to start. And, you know, we made a conscious decision sort of in the summer. We thought, well, look, if Harry's 36 now, you know, and he has X years left at it, you know, who are we going to try and, you know, bring forward and not promote in a sense and usurp Harry, because that's not going to happen. As long as he's in a saddle, he'd be riding number one, as far as I'm concerned, as far as he's concerned. But you've got to have a good backup, and Tristan's just improved massively. He sets the precedent for young jockeys in our establishment going forward. That is what we require from them, that level of dedication, that level of loyalty, commitment. And look, there's going to be success stories, and I'm sure there's going to be sad stories where, you know, limited ability only gets some people so far.
I wasn't very good when I started. I'd only ridden show jumpers, and it took me a long time really for it all to drop. But I'd like to hope that I went round Ditchit with my eyes and ears open, and I sat next to good people in the weighing room, and I just tried to learn as much as I could off, you know, top flight jockeys and you know, knowledgeable people, and hopefully, you know, now I can pass that down on through to him.
You're a competitor. No one wants to miss out on big winners, but does it make it slightly easier, say, when a Panic Attack goes and wins a Ladbrokes trophy,
absolutely,
that it's Tristan riding?
It makes it easier. The main thing is your work ethic. If you put the work in and you try, you know, you want to do better and you work, you'll get your chances. But I think that's installed into me and Dan from my dad. Although we've got all this, you know, he always reminds us you can still mess it up.
We can't put the pressure of perfection upon such young shoulders, and relatively inexperienced. You know, he hasn't got Harry's experience or Brian Hughes or Sean Bowen or whatever. You know, he is still growing, and there's going to be mistakes. You have to allow those mistakes. Okay, you don't welcome them and you're not happy when they arrive, but you've got to accept that they're going to happen. Otherwise, you won't build a young rider.
Is Harry at the peak of his powers right now?
Yeah, no doubt. But Harry's riding more skillfully. He's not riding any stronger than he is or was or whatever. He's a very strong rider in the saddle. We all know that. But he's riding more skillfully than he's ever ridden, because he can slow the race down in his mind probably more than he's ever been able to do.
Coming to the 19th and final fence, Grey Dawning and Royal Pagaille. Grey Dawning just about led Royal Pagaille, who's fighting on hard on the inside. Harry Skelton nursing along Grey Dawning. He's just about got enough in reserve, and is now Grey Dawning coming away, and he's reversed last year's placings in the Betfair Chase.
To be honest with you, it's a bold statement. We expected him to win, based on what we'd seen at home and the evidence of the year before. but it never normally works out that easily or straightforwardly. So it was nice for the horse that it did. And I'm not one of those people that goes, oh, he deserved it, because that's disrespectful to your competitors. He didn't deserve it, but he was the best horse on the day and he won. So we were very proud of him.
Gold Cup. How'd you get there?
Probably, we're not going to go to Ireland. I mulled that over a good while. I think he'd be a big competitor in Ireland. The devil in me wants to go and have a poke, but I'm not convinced it's the right thing to do.
So is that a trip to Cheltenham on trials then?
I think so, yeah, as long as the ground's suitable. Unlike me, I'm not going to run him that much. I love running them. I'd run them as much as I could, but I can't go right-handed, same as Protectorat, so I can't run anything in the King George, which is highly frustrating.
How are you going to feel at Kempton on Boxing Day when you're watching the King George and you've got Django By, the Jukebox Man, and possibly a Gaelic Warrior jumping the last? Will you be the Django By's biggest fan?
Absolutely. Django By and the Jukebox Man getting all the support from Warwickshire, I'm sure. But I'm not drawn into all that type of thing. If Gaelic Warrior is the best horse and he wins, fair play. You know what I mean? I know how hard it's going to be to beat him at the end of a season. So whatever he wins en route, it's just making it harder. So yeah, of course, it's ideal if it doesn't happen, but there's no point going, we don't want Willie to win anything, because Willie's going to win a lot.
The yellow clay, the red cap, Jack Kennedy. The white cap is the new line, Harry Skelton, who's getting up. The new line has won the Turners.
This year we've seen him run in the Fighting Fifth at Newcastle, and he came down 2 out. What's your overriding feeling now the dust has settled?
Look, we were always wanting to go to the Fighting Fifth to start off. Although he has stamina, he's not short of pace. He is, I think he was doing nearly 36 mile an hour or something up the straight at Newcastle, and I think that was the problem. When Constitution Hill fell, it left me in front all completely on my own. It's something he hasn't ever done before. And then he was a little bit green in front and a bit inexperienced in that position. He had a little bit of a look at the hurdle down the side, and I think from the last hurdle to the next hurdle was about a mile, and I think he probably was just looking for the next hurdle, and it caught him by surprise. Then he had a look at that, and then I think the race turned into a bit of a sprint up the straight then, and experience got him. That's what I feel that happened, just the experience of going that quick. Now look, I don't think you'll be doing 36 mile an hour in a champion hurdle, because you'll go a good solid gallop from end to end, and you've got to stay really well to win those 2 mile championship races, and that's what he does. And now I think we'll go to the international, and then hopefully that'll give him a nice springboard on then to the champion hurdle.
What was your feeling before 2 out?
I was going to win. He was. I had plenty of horse underneath me, and I just wanted to sit into him a bit to make him sort of latch onto the bridle to keep him focused, because he'd had a bit of a run around. But I felt that I had plenty of horse left underneath me. But it's jump racing. He fell. Golden Ace won.
We knew we had a horse that could cope with 2 mile speed. It was just whether he could cope with absolute championship speed. But when he fell, he was still picking up. He wasn't getting slower. He was getting faster at that point, which is quite remarkable. I'd have liked it if he'd have been starting to get a bit slower, because then Harry could have, when you're off the bridle, you can ride into the fences a bit more. Yeah. Whereas he was going so fast, Harry held him 3 out, he was quick, and 2 out, there was just no stride.
What's your hunch? Do you think he'd have won?
Yeah, I do, but it's irrelevant, isn't it? He didn't. So I'm not going to get wrapped up in, Dan Skelton said he'd definitely have won, and X, Y, and Z.
What did you think of him out in front? Because Constitution Hill coming down so early, did that hinder him?
Well, it wasn't ideal, was it? I mean, we had in our mind a perfect plan that we were going to sit outside of Constitution Hill. Constitution Hill was going to go and sort of make the run in with us, and then hopefully we were good enough from the back of 3 out to go and show younger legs, whatever, But then obviously Constitution Hill goes at the second, we're left in front. You almost can't go fast enough then, because you got no one to go with. So yeah, circumstances, but that's sport, and it wasn't ideal. There's nothing in the fact that he jinked at the 4th. If you watch the racing back of the whole day, a lot of horses did that. There was a fence in front of the hurdle, and there was no hurdle rail. You almost came round the fence, and then you were presented with the hurdle straight away. And a lot of horses, if you look back through the racing that day, a lot of horses sort of like leant to the inside. He's 100%. Like he'd never not go and jump that jump. So I wasn't worried about that at all.
Some people still aren't convinced, saying that family-wise, he's from a family full of stayers. What do you think of that?
Bruce Springsteen's brother couldn't sing. I don't know if he's got a brother, but you know, he has that staying family, but he's, yeah, he when he wants to be quick, he's fast.
You have no doubt this is a
Absolutely
champion hurdle horse.
Yeah, no doubt. I've ridden some champion hurdles horses. I actually rode Rock on Ruby to win a novice hurdle. Won over 2 mile 5 in a novice hurdle. He won at Newbury over a staying trip, I think. It's funny, he got beat by Bobsworth at Cheltenham, finished second. They dropped back, won a champion hurdle. And Rock on Ruby, yeah, I'm not saying you need to be that absolute, you know, it's a vintage 2 miles or a really fast thing, but to win over 2 miles their championship level, you've got to stay strong, and he stays strong, and that's what, you know, I can relate to those sort of horses that I've ridden in the past. Celestial Halo ran a champion hurdle. You've got to stay, and you've got to be able to go at high cruising speed for a long time, and that's what he does.
Mydaddypaddy is strolling home impressively to beat Harbour Island here. Mydaddypaddy, that's impressive.
We're down a novice that's taken the novice hurdles in this country by storm. He's currently at the top of the market for the Supreme Novices Hurdle is Mydaddypaddy, a horse I'd imagine you're particularly excited about.
Very, very excited, yeah, why not? Looked good in his bumper in the spring. He's actually only 4 years old. We tried our hardest not to run him, but he was just so naturally forward and ready that we got on and ran him. He's done what we hoped he'd do. A big test is coming on Boxing Day, and bigger tests to follow. So, yeah, it's really exciting. But you know, we got, you know, we're not on the first rung of the ladder. We're on a bit further up than that, but we're a long way from the top.
In comparison to novice hurdlers, the New Lion last year,
Yeah.
where is he at this stage of his career?
Yeah, very similar. Very similar. I mean, New Lion went 2 races, 2 smaller races, undefeated, and then stepped up to the Shallow. We're stepping up to the Formby with him. We're going shorter distance.
Does that mean he's got more speed?
At this stage, yeah, probably. But very interestingly, Mydaddypaddy's out of Deb, who we won a 3 mile chase with. So I was always a little, not unsure, but I always felt like Mydaddypaddy had become a stayer. And actually, when he came in this year, he was faster. As he got stronger, he's got faster, which is a quite happy place to be honest with you. But yeah, I think he's probably naturally more flamboyant than the New Lion. The New Lion, all of his best stuff comes when he gets to the track, whereas Mydaddypaddy is a little flashier at home.
Has he always shown a lot of ability?
Oh yeah.
We don't want to get too carried away, but how would you plan your way to Cheltenham from there?
I'd say if everything went according to plan, he'd go straight to Cheltenham.
Straight there?
Yeah.
And definitely for the 2 mile race? You think he's got all the speed in the world?
Yeah. I was, like I say, at the start of the year, I was open, not even open to suggestions. I had in my head that it was going to be an awkward conversation with Dermot, who owns him and breeds him, who was absolutely adamant we stay at 2. But I thought there was going to be an awkward conversation halfway through the year where I was like, Dermot, I think we need to go up in trip. But there won't be that, not on what we've seen so far. He's, like I say, he's coming this year and got faster, which is great because, you know, Dermot wants to stay at 2 and we'd love to stay at 2 as well. So it suits everybody. But I was just being open to interpretation from the horse. You know, at the end of the day, I want to listen to the horse and every horse and do what they want to do and what suits them. And I just had it in my head that he was going to go up in trip because of his mum. But he's telling us otherwise, so we listen.
Well, he's not the only impressive novice hurdler that you've had this season. Which are the other names that you've been particularly impressed with?
I was really impressed with Harry Lowes at Exeter, but he didn't go quite so well at Market Rasen afterwards, which was a little frustrating. Sinatra's been second in 2 good maidens. So Paid and Nom has he's probably had good bumper form last year, but he's just improved properly, really. He's going to go for the Lanzarote. Cadastral, we've only had 1 run with him so far this year, and I think there's a lot more to come from him. Giants Graves had 1 run, he hasn't even got going yet, really.
We could be here all day with these, couldn't we?
Yeah, they're a good bunch. They're a good bunch. But like, you know, Giants Grave got beat, Cadastral got beat. That's not the end, like we were saying earlier on, it's not the end of the world. I think they're going to improve dramatically.